Chase Thomas podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of College Basketball Weekly here on the Chase Thomas podcast, where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, Everything School HQ, up there in a fellow snowed-in area of Oak Ridge, Tennessee. My good friend, fellow University of Tennessee alumni, Will Warren of statsbywill.substack.com. Go subscribe today, the best college basketball website that money can buy. Go become a subscriber today if you're not already. It's the middle of the college basketball season. It's $5 right there. statsbywill.substack.com. Type in your email. That easy, that simple. Do it today. Will, good evening, sir. How are you?
Great. And you know what? Might as well announce my little special I'm running. That'll be out by the time this posts. 8 inches of snow this week, about $8 off a yearly subscription. So $22 for a year right now. Pretty good deal, if you ask me, for as many words as I vomit out every week. The access, you get to access every single thing I do. I did a little piece this week on, Ken Pom top 25 teams in January that go on to miss the NCAA tournament with my buddy Andrew Weatherman, who's also a data science guy. But, a lot of good stuff on there. If you're a Tennessee person, obviously you may have heard of it or you might like it a lot. If you're not a Tennessee person, don't worry. I write about other teams too. And no, good to be snowed in. I did run the last 2 days.
Like inside or outside?
Outside. It's there.
You are
now,
an animal, Will. Absolutely.
Now, our main roads are cleared. So
it's still cold. Still was like negative 8
bad.
degrees for part of yesterday.
Yeah, like today at lunch, it was like 31. That's not bad.
Oh God.
31 I can deal with. Now, like if it's 10 or something, yeah, obviously I'm not going out. But 20 and up I can do.
We're built different. Well,
Truly.
We're built different. Speaking of teams built different that Tennessee might meet at some point in the NCAA tournament, because they're not going to schedule them, the Memphis Tigers. We have to talk about them. Will, we have to talk about Memphis. Are they having a moment? Is this for real? Where are you at with Memphis's week that they have had, and whether or not they are a sustainable top 10 team in college basketball this year?
I look at them and kind of like, I'm of two minds. So on one hand, excellent resume. No doubt about that. Probably I would argue one of like the 5 to 10 best in college basketball right now. Not for like number of high-end wins. Like, you look, their best wins over Texas A&M, but they've just stacked up win over win over win to the point that it is like they're currently 6-0 against Quad 2. I don't know if people know that. This is a list of wins that are not amazing, but it's hard to go 6-0 against this group. Pretty much all of them away from home too. Missouri, Michigan, Arkansas, Clemson, VCU, SMU, like Virginia, none of those are bad wins. Like, you had to go away from home for all but one of those and get the job done, and they did. So, credit to them. But I think one thing that gives me pause here is shot quality's data on the team, which suggests that Memphis is like if you just went by who got the better shots in a game, Memphis should be 9-8, not 14-3. 15-2 actually. Not that I'm like 100% on board with that, but when I look at their season so far, I do see a lot of games where they've probably frankly been quite lucky to win. They're 9-1 in games decided by 6 or less. They have a real nasty gift for getting into games with bad teams and completely nuking their net and all relevant metrics you need to gain higher seeds, but still coming out on top. Like, they went to overtime with UTSA, who's in the 300s in Ken Pom. They barely escaped on the road against a bad Tulsa team. It's funny to mention this as like a bad performance, but had to overcome a near game-winning buzzer beater by Vandy to win. A very bad Vandy team, as we're aware. And to go with like a lot of other, frankly, really unimpressive performances. So like I said, I'm of two minds here. I think the wins are really good. That being said, I I don't know how much we know about them, because I thought we would know a lot coming into the AAC, and the AAC frankly sucks. You've got FAU, Memphis, SMU, and North Texas, and I think it's a gigantic gap between those four and everybody else. So, I mean, we might learn something when they play FAU. We might learn something when they go on the road to North Texas. But for now, it's a thing of, I mean, they could be 22-2 here in a few weeks and still be like 30th in KenPom. It'd be just like Murray State with better SEO.
That is such a Will Warrant. Murray State. There's certain things I'm like, oh, it's Will. That is a Will take. That is a Will.
But I'm going to be honest here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really root for or against. I don't have any feelings about Memphis, to be honest. I don't know if you're aware of this guy on Twitter. I don't remember. I don't know what his new name is, but he was like Ball Knower Will for a while. It's not me, for the record.
Uh-huh.
I think people listening to this are going to be aware. He's like a Memphis super fan.
Okay.
It's. I think his new name is like Will something 901.
Okay.
I'll go on a hunt for him after this. But you can be posting about it. Were you ever aware of the promotion relegation freak on Twitter?
Mm-mm. But
like
I'm
Ted
for it.
Westervelt or something like that.
Mm-mm.
Like he was tagging an Applebee's in his tweets at one point, and it was just like he would like get in fights about promotion relegation needing to be part of the U.S. soccer structure. That's this guy, but with Memphis basketball. Just like completely unrelated posts from Matt Norlander turn into arguments about how Memphis should be in the top 5. And so, just because I would like to see how this works, because I haven't followed him too closely because I haven't had a reason to, but say they lose to Tulane on Sunday, which is like not impossible. Going to be very interested to see those tweets, to be honest.
So does it matter that they don't have a great strength of schedule? Do you think in college basketball in 2024, it matters what kind of schedule you're playing? Like, do you think that it just, if the AAC's down, it doesn't affect how we should view Memphis?
Yes and no. So I would say, yes, it matters for seeding, because I think like playing a real tough schedule is meaningful, or at least like playing a decent schedule is meaningful because it gives you opportunities to rack up a bunch of quad 1 and quad 2 wins. And in Memphis' credit, they have racked up a ton of quad 2 wins. I mean, they're undefeated against anything that's not a quad 1 opponent. But that being said, if you're going to play a bunch of, so they've played 17 games. We're recording this prior to them playing USF tonight. 17 games, 3 have been against quad 1. So it's great that they've gone 14-0 against quads 2 through 4. But the actual content of those games has been pretty disappointing. So you can make up for a poor in-conference strength of schedule if you're whooping the East Carolinas and the UABs and the Rices of the world.
Who is the player to know on Memphis? So for folks who are not watching Memphis night in, night out, who's the player to know? The most fascinating, maybe just the best player on Memphis to this point.
I think the social media fave is Javon Quinterly because people know who he is. The best player on the team is David Jones. This guy is awesome. 20-point per game scorer, very efficient both inside and outside the arc. Transferred in from St. John's, where he's had 3 years of college ball and he's never really been efficient, never really found his stroke offensively, but always profiled as like a useful, impactful player. And for whatever reason, they've turned him loose a bit more as a guard than a forward this year. And it really seems to have unlocked something in him. Really good at getting to the line. He doesn't foul much. Impactful on both ends of the court. I don't know that he's going to win AAC Player of the Year. It's going to be dependent on how well or how much people are swayed by the big 2 at FAU and John L. and Golden. But if for whatever reason those 2 vote split, I think he's your AAC Player of the Year.
What's the most impressive thing about what Penny has done with this year's group versus years past with Penny teams?
The fact that he keeps seeming to have controversy or a missing player or like guys that are showing up on milk cartons around the program and still winning games. So like do you remember Jordan Brown from Louisiana Lafayette, the guy that UT played in the round?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
The big guy. He transferred in Memphis, remember? 22-point game scorer, was going to be a starter. He hasn't been with the team for 2 months. Penny keeps saying he's sick. The guy's in California. He's not. Penny has refused to say on the record that he's off the team. Meanwhile, Naquan Tomlin kicked off of Kansas State's roster last month, playing for Memphis right now. Jaquan Walton, originally committed to Alabama, got kicked out, playing for Memphis starting in July. It is the most chaotic roster building strategy one can have, but I do think it's a testament to Penny because the offense looks really good this year, frankly. I think they're very talented scoring wise. And as many problems as they've got with the defense, they do have a knack for getting some late game stops. They're good at coming through and it matters. And you don't want to call them like the new Providence from a couple years ago, where Providence was whatever they were and were like 43rd in KenPom as a 4 seed. But that's kind of like where we're heading, where there's a team or two like this every year. It's usually Wisconsin for some reason, but it's not this year. Memphis might be that team this year that's like, ends up 26-5 or something, but is 40th in the ratings.
What's their ceiling in the tournament, do you think?
I think they can make the second weekend. I wouldn't bet on it, but I think they're certainly capable of it. I would be a little surprised to see this team win 4 in a row to get to the Final Four, just because their defense is honestly quite bad at times. Like, they don't rebound well. They give up a lot of just wide open threes, which lends themselves to some bad performances. But they've got an actual, honest to God, go-to scorer. You've got a scoring guard who's really good at this level in Quinterly. They have real depth. I mean, it's a good team. I probably believe in them a little more than 44th in KenPom States. I don't know that I would bet on them to be like 50% higher to make the second weekend, but I mean, they're going to be like a 7 seed. They're going to have a real shot.
I like it. Will Warren, Bubble Watch. Which school is less on the bubble this week than they were a week prior based on what happened on their schedule?
But it's always fun this week over week because so much changes. But let me give you a team that I don't think people are paying too much attention to at the moment, that has actually like quietly done a really good job for themselves. And this is because of their record. People don't care yet. But it's Xavier. Xavier's 9-8, 3-3 Big East. And when you hear that, you're going to think, well, why are we even talking about them? That's an NIT team. And that's fair. I'm not totally convinced they're going to get over the hump either. But they struggled with injuries, a lot of non-conference play, got really unlucky in some close games early on. You might remember them pushing Houston to the brink. Got, I believe, lost in a buzzer beater to Washington, took a tough loss at home to Oakland, and lost by 1 at Villanova. This is still a really good team. Like, they beat Providence by 20 on the road over the weekend, beat a good Butler team at home by double digits this week. The schedule is also shaping up to where they're going to be favored in 5 of their next 7. If they do that, they're going to be 14-10, and it's a lot more palatable to make a case for 14-10 Big East team that's got an above average amount of wins for a bubble team against their schedule, which is, I mean, as of right now, the number 2 schedule in America in terms of difficulty. 14-10 would be pretty good. I don't want to count these guys out. I think they've done a good job to get themselves where they are. And if you don't like that case, Seton Hall would be your more obvious pick, because Seton Hall has overachieved quite nicely in Big East play too. 6-1 with, if they beat Creighton on Saturday, a chance at 7-1 to start Big East play.
It's not bad.
Not at all, especially considering they're more or less left for dead. Very simple section who killed their bubble behaviors this week, Texas. I don't want to hear any more about those guys. They're done.
And the thing about Texas is, like...
The thing about Texas is the worst possible thing they could have done was made last year's Elite Eight.
It's the Dennis Felton thing, where they just went too far. You can't. Like, it's just... You had to bring back Rodney Terry. Like, you had to do it, and you have to let this play out now over the next, I guess we'll see how long they let it play out. But I mean, you kind of had to do it. It's just an uncomfortable situation if you're a Texas fan, where you're like, he had a deep run, you had to do this. But I think it's not looking good long term for the Rodney Terry era in Austin.
I don't think so. And it sucks for him because he seems like a very nice guy, aside from his whole horns down fiasco. But
which, hold on, can I say one thing about that?
Sure.
Look, I think horns down is fine. Like, it's a totally fine thing. It's not a big deal. It's something that the weirdest part to me about this is like how much it upsets Texas folks, where I just don't, because if it wasn't a big deal, no one's doing this to you anymore. No one's just
Yeah, no
doing
one
this.
would care
Right.
at all.
That being said, I do get like why a coach would be annoyed at, if it's true, what UCF did in the handshake line. Like a coach, the coach of the other team being annoyed of like multiple players just doing the horns down, doing the shaking of hands or whatever after. Like that all makes sense. Like I listened to Rodney Terry after, I'm like, nah, he seems like a nice guy. I think it's a little too over the top in terms of the horns down and like what that means about sportsmanship. But I'm like, he is the coach of the team, and I think it makes sense why he'd be annoyed about that in the post game line and the reaction of like, hey, great, you beat us. UCF, you're still bad this year. Like what? Like it's just that other part of it. It's like this is like your Super Bowl is kind of like what I took it as, of just beating him the horns down and having all the fun. It's like, all right, man, but like you're not having a good year. You're celebrating a little bit too much here. It's been a rough year for UCF.
I guess, but like, one, beating Kansas and Texas in the span of 2 weeks is amazing for that program.
Yeah.
And two, I think Rodney Terry should just win the game if he doesn't want to deal with it. They
That's
led
also
that
part of it.
game by 14 with under 10 minutes to go. Just win the game and you don't have to deal with it.
It's true. I don't disagree. McNeese State, best pick and roll defense in college basketball. Eric Fawcett had a really good video layout of what Will Wade's team is doing. Is this a surprise to you that they're the best pick and roll defense in college basketball this year? And is McNeese State going to be a team that no one wants to play opening weekend come tournament time?
I don't think that it's necessarily a surprise, because the last Will Wade team at LSU finally figured out defense, and it was because the thing Eric points out in his tweet, which is like the sort of like the triple, the triple switching, exact same thing LSU did his final year there, completely different than what they had done before, by the way. And it was very effective. They were the number one defense for a good bit that season. They just didn't have any scoring. And then obviously Will's career took a turn for the worse as soon as the season ended. But I don't think that if you adjusted for schedule, I don't think they'd be number one. I would pick Houston myself, because Houston's pick and roll defense is just the nastiest thing you can watch right now. It's evil. But considering the competition they face, McNeese is clearly just like way, way more than what these teams can handle. And, in retrospect, it was probably a little evil to let McNeese not only get Will Wade, but to get Shahada Wells from TCU, who is a really underrated piece of that team. And then to add some other, high major contributors, CJ Felder, Christian Shoemate from, I guess he was there already. I'm thinking of JT Shoemate. But they're so much better than the rest of their conference. So like they're at 92nd or 88th in Ken Palm right now. They were 92nd Monday. Next highest team in the Southland is 250. So, I mean, they genuinely could go undefeated in conference play. What they remind me of in a way, though, they don't play the same style of ball, but it makes me think of this, is a former Southland team, Stephen F. Austin. Same sort of just like clearly far better than everybody else. Your talent is way ahead. Like you have actual potential NBA players on your roster. Wells probably being the main guy there, though he is a bit undersized. And like, it's not unrealistic that they could go 29-2. And if that's the case, it's definitely not unrealistic that you get to March, and if you're the 5 seed and McNeese is your 12, you're just really sad. You wished it was anybody else. Like, it reminds me of that in the way of you kind of want your teams to play somebody, but at the same time, if you go, it's hard to go 29-2. You're clearly very good if you're doing that. And I think they are like very good defensively. I'm more impressed with what they do on offense. So I think a little bit of regression is coming there. But no, this is like, it feels like a bit of a mercenary thing to me in a way for Will Wade of like, look, you're going to be shocked if he's there next year, right?
I don't know. It depends on like what jobs open up, I guess. How I don't know if a lot of the bigger programs are going to wait to see maybe another year or two, like, because it wasn't like Patino was just right back in, and he wasn't at Iona for a little bit. I don't know. Like, I could see Will Wade being there 2 to 3 years.
I don't think he will be, man. I think
Okay.
he's gone. I think he's one and done.
But
And
what opens
probably
up
just
for him?
fine with that. Huh?
Where do you think where it
Ole
makes
Miss.
sense?
Because Chris Beard, you think Chris Beard
You think
wants
he
to
gets
stay
back
for
in the
next
SEC
year?
right away?
Yeah.
Hmm.
The amount of care about this stuff I think is dwindling fast, especially in the NIL era. And to be honest, I would be more concerned about hiring Chris Beard than I would be Will Wade.
I don't disagree. I also think Clemson might be sneaky for him if the Clemson slide continues.
Clemson really needs to stop losing games. Brad Brownell is addicted to the hot seat. That man is
they were doing too well.
Sickening. He's going ham on the hot seat right now. He needs to back off.
He is. Is UNC looking more like a Final Four team as of right now to you, Will Warren? Big victory over Louisville yesterday, but what have you seen from the Tar Heels?
Big victory over Louisville.
Hey, the 6-11 Louisville Cardinals. It's just it's not a walk in the park.
Mike Rutherford promise did come through. They did win more than 4 games this year, so credit to them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I thought North Carolina looks like a Final Four team for a while. I think people are coming around because they have been unusually good defensively lately. And to some extent, that's real. And to some extent, teams are shooting 25% from 3 against them over the last month. That's not going to last. But they figured out a bit of what was going wrong with them. And it's kind of funny that it's come at the same time as a slightly lesser offensive performance. But one, the race between them and Duke down the stretch here for the ACC title is going to be insane, and I can't wait for it. 2, I mean, any list of teams, and I think you can I'd actually put 7 teams in this category of quote unquote best teams in America that sort of rotate by the day, where it's Houston, and I'm just going in Ken Pom order here because I think the 7 is the correct 7. Houston, Purdue, Arizona, Auburn, UConn, Tennessee, UNC. I feel like any of those 7 could not only make the Final Four, but win the title. Tennessee, I was less convinced by, but then you have this Connect run of late, and you're starting to see the path where that's plausible. Auburn looks awesome. The top 3, I don't think need any introduction nor does UConn. But UNC, it's a nice deal where I think the Caleb Love breakup is the rare one that worked for both. UNC is still very old, very experienced. But them having Harrison Ingram come in and help fix their spacing was so massive. They just look like such a better flowing offense this year. And, I do think a little bit of regression is coming defensively, but still Armando Bacot stepped it up defensively this year. Cormac Ryan has come in a bit above expectation on that end. RJ Davis has. And shout out to Elliot Cadeau. That guy's better than I thought he would be, just straight up. He hasn't been a huge offensive contributor lately, but when you see the motor he deploys on defense and the way that he stays in a play, that's something you can work with.
UNC's scary. UNC is this is I wish we would have seen UNC Tennessee this year. If only we could have seen that kind of game happen. I would have liked to see this UNC team against Tennessee at some point. That would have been cool. If we had gotten to see specifically Tennessee versus UNC from January 14th on, that would be a cool look. I would love to see something like that. I imagine those 2 teams playing, maybe in TBA, maybe it could be in Chapel Hill. I'm not the logistics guy, but it would have been cool to see at some point this year.
It would also have been cool if in that game, Tennessee's best player doesn't get hurt down the stretch. So, you play that again, you don't know what happens. But the thing that I do like about them is, so you've got that game where they won 192, and then you've got both Clemson and NC State last week where they won 65-55 and 67-54. I find more value, or inherently more interest, I guess, in teams that can win games a lot of different ways, because I feel like that preps you best for March. You're not always going to be able to play a game at your preferred pace or your preferred style. And so, when it goes against you, can you overcome and win that style of game? And UNC is showing that to me.
I don't disagree. Takeaway. Speaking of the Vols, this week, 2 gigantic performances from Dalton Knecht back to back here. What do you make of the week of Dalton Knecht and Dalton Knecht mania, and what you saw from the Vols bouncing back from a midweek loss to Mississippi State, coming back and beating the Dogs in the Steg on a crazy 15-1 run to end, and then also what you saw in a blowout victory over Florida in TBA on Tuesday night?
So here's what I've seen. So you had that UNC loss in late November, but it also kind of felt like the game where like people, I mean, obviously Dalton Knecht had the Michigan State game, the Wisconsin game, and whatnot, but that was the one where it felt like he got on the map. And so since that game went final, Tennessee's 9-1, and you might say, okay, big whoop. But coming back, I mean, I'm willing to admit I might have been wrong on Georgia. I don't know that they're going to make the tournament, but they're tournament level, like a bubble level. NC State is probably bubble level. Ole Miss, I think their Linsanity run has blissfully ended, but they're good. They're fine. Tennessee, kind of quietly, 5-1 against top 75 teams in KenPom over the last month. That's pretty good, man. And the lone bump in the road being a road loss to a Mississippi State team that pretty much everybody agrees is going to make the tournament. That's not an offensive loss, really, especially, you know, Tennessee kind of figured some things out, Knecht got himself back on the rails. And that's probably the biggest thing for me is it seems like Tennessee, Knecht, the whole roster is realizing what their best set is and what their best like zone is either have Ziegler or Knecht, generally Knecht, running point, Adu as the screener, and then everything you do comes off of that because you can't play drop because Knecht can shoot over the top of it and make it at a high rate. You can't hard hedge and leave Knecht pass out of it because then it's 4-on-3. And you can't be indecisive because Adu has gotten really, really good at slipping these screens, like much more so than he was last year. Awaka's getting there. I don't trust him as much in these yet, but he's getting there. When you slip the screen and Knecht makes that quick decision, Adu's either generally going to get a very easy 2, or they're going to have to overcommit resources, and Tennessee's going to have an open shooter from that action. Now, it's kind of fascinating to watch this unfold in real time because I think you and I, a lot of people, Vols and Draft on Twitter is a guy who's been on this for like 5 years. Tennessee's like aversion to running pick and roll for a long time. It feels like that's changing. It's a changing of the guard in real time here to where Tennessee's becoming a more modern style offense.
Knecht's making them like Kevin Durant's now engaged in Rick Barnes games again, and he's just watching. He's like, hey, where's the PNRs? Where's the PNRs?
But I don't think that starts without Ziegler though, because Ziegler's such a skilled ball handler and dissector of defenses that if he gets around the screen and he's just sitting in the lane and he's very good at this, just like half a step, you're either having the big who's now trailing behind you or the defender who's now trailing behind you jump over Ziegler's back to try and block the shot without fouling, or you've got an advantageous situation with the screener, or alternately, they're committing more resources and you can kick it out for an open shot. It just feels like in the same way Tennessee knows their defensive identity to a T, it feels like they're starting to discover the best offensive identity for this team, which is good to see. Like I can see a path to like Tennessee getting to the season finale on March 9th and this offense like maybe being top 15 in KenPom. It's not, I mean, they're 21st right now.
That's a Final Four team. If you're top 15 in offense and you're top 3 in defense, like that's
Final
a team.
Four. Yeah. I mean, they're going to be odds on favorite to do that too. And, you know, not only that, it's becoming more clear. And Kentucky's going to have their shot and it's a long season. A lot of weird stuff happens. But it's becoming relatively clear to me, based on how the schedules line up, that if Tennessee wins Saturday against Alabama, this is likely going to be a 2-team race between them and Auburn for the SEC regular season title, because Alabama's schedule way tougher than like anyone else's in the conference, minus Vandy, which is funny. Like, we'll run through it quick because I know we're on a time crunch. After they play Tennessee, this is Alabama's. They got to go at Georgia, at Auburn, at Kentucky, at Florida. Like, they've still got a lot of really tough games to do. They haven't touched the meat of their schedule yet. Auburn has just at Alabama, at Mississippi State, and at Tennessee. They don't have nearly as many tough road games. Tennessee doesn't really either. it's probably this game Saturday kind of decides who's in that race with Auburn the rest of the way.
They should be fine with Auburn or fine with Alabama on Saturday. I am very curious because I think to me the two best is Auburn and Tennessee. Like that's the one I have circled. I think
agree.
Kentucky's good. I just don't think Kentucky is as good as Tennessee or Auburn this year. I think the two best in the conference are Tennessee and Auburn. That's the final juggernaut battle.
The way to probably frame it best is that I don't think Kentucky's floor is as high as Auburn or Tennessee's.
Yeah.
Kentucky, with how much variance they have night over night, Kentucky's floor can be quite low. I mean, it's a team who lost to UNC Wilmington.
Yeah. Should have lost to Florida.
Yeah.
Final thing here, Will Warren, and then we got to go. But let's do Bart Torvik Don't Lie. Texas Tech, top 25 team. Does that check out when you examine what the stats and what the advanced numbers say about the Red Raiders? Are they a top 25 team in the country?
I don't know about top 25. I'd probably say like top 35, 40, somewhere in there. But the goal for them this year is just make the tournament in year one of McCasland. And they're going to do it. All signs point to that. Tough timing to do this after they got rocked by Houston, I guess. But that's how it works sometimes.
That might be the best team in college basketball this year.
Yeah, and I had pointed this out on our man Trilly Donovan's channel. Brutal schedule spot for Texas Tech to walk into after back-to-back losses for Houston. They probably had 5 dead, 17 injured at Houston practices this week. And that was just the managers. But like Texas Tech got a little hot for a while from 3 and probably overperformed their real abilities. But I would be a little surprised if they don't end up above 500 in Big 12 play, which is a hell of an accomplishment in this Big 12 in particular. No, I like this team. Think they're going to make the tournament. You're always dangerous with a master planner like McCasland on your side. Like that staff is just honestly top 15 in the country.
There you go. Texas Tech in good hands going forward. So we'll see what ultimately happens with the Red Raiders, but I think they are a tournament team and they're another team just right there heading in the right direction. Good coaching staff, like you said, and a team on the upswing going into the next couple of years here. Will, what can the good folks check out from you over at statsbywill.substack.com? Subscribe today, this week.
You need to subscribe now because if you do, you get the full Alabama-Tennessee preview, which is looking like it's going to be 3,000 plus words. Honestly, deserving for like arguably one of the games of the year, in my opinion. We do watch lists every week. Next week, we'll do an NCAA tournament piece looking ahead at the quality of the field. We've got stuff on teams most likely to improve or decline in their chances to make the tournament. A lot of good stuff coming out on the site these days. And thrilled to say, working together with some people behind the scenes to get more data projects out and get some more interesting pieces. And yes, dadgummit, I will get back to work on the Vanderbilt series as soon as I've got some time.
Look, the folks want the Vanderbilt takes, Will Warren. They want it. But thank you, as always, Will Warren. Go subscribe, statsbywill.substack.com. Subscribe today, type an email. That easy, that simple. Do it today. And support the good folks over there. And by good folks, I mean Will Warren. Go support him over there as we're all snowed in and hopefully going to be able to get out of our houses in the next couple days here in East Tennessee. Will, stay safe out there, and I'll talk to you next week.
Thanks for having me on.